Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux and Gina Buccola here with the DRF. A huge card this Saturday out at Gulfstream Park. It's Pegasus World Cup Day, and the stakes races, they're certainly loaded with 7 graded stakes in total. And Gino, before we dive in to one of those stakes races, just to remind everyone, DRF has all of your needs covered. If you need past performances, they are available now. And as I mentioned, 7 graded stakes races, 13 races in total. So go to shop.drf.com. And the race we're going to focus in on in this preview, race number 5, the Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint, and an overflow sort of here in terms of the field. There's 15 entered, obviously 12 here. We'll start Gino, and a little bit of everything in this 5 furlong turf sprint.
Yeah, I thought there were probably a few horses in here you could eliminate just because they're not coming in the best of form. It seems like there might be kind of a top tier. And then what is fun about handicapping this race, a lot of familiar names, horses that we've seen through the years. We have some 8 and 9 year olds, some old war horses here who love to sprint on the turf. They found their niche and now they just want to keep running as long as they can. So we'll do the best if we can find you some value in this one, but they'll be flying early here, Ashley.
Yeah, and you have a lot of horses coming out of, say, 6.5 on the downhill or even 5.5 at Keeneland and some of their more recent starts. So the 5 furlong distance is great for some and maybe tricky for others. Now we'll flip to the time form US pace projections here. And it's a turf sprint, it's Gulfstream, it's a stakes race. You expect a fast pace. And it looks like a couple of horses here are expected to be part of the action. One of those being the 5, that's right, who really, Gino, loves to be forward regardless. 5.5 is really never more than what, maybe a length or two off of it, but typically leading early on.
And the blinkers on too. So I think they want to make sure that they're focused and right on the front end. Then to the outside, you have Coppola. And sometimes, Ashley, when you have horses that are drawn to the outside or the inside, sometimes it can be negative because it forces them. Sometimes it can be positive because it forces them or make things even quicker. So a horse like Coppola has to go from the outside. A horse like Yes, I Am Free down on the inside probably has to go to hold that position and not get shuffled back. I feel like there'll be at least 3 or 4 horses in here really pushing the pace.
And with that quick expected pace, look out for the number 1, Johnny Padres, who does have the late pace flag attached to him, a horse that typically is doing his best work in those final stages. And speaking of Johnny Padres, when you kind of look at his recent form, Gino, there's something to be desired there. It's not quite hitting it. But when you go to those races, say, earlier this year at Del Mar, or even I should say last year at Del Mar, he was in fine form going back just about a year ago.
Yeah, and that's what's tough is that we know he has the ceiling. We know he has an A game that's pretty good. That would be very competitive with a lot of this group, but he's just not in the best of form. When you have a field like this, Ashley, that's so deep, that feels like you have so many different players, I think I want horses that are coming in a little bit better form or at least have like legitimate excuses for their recent efforts. And I really couldn't find as much for Johnny Padres.
And maybe the selling point are the new connections. Jose D'Angelo
Yeah.
takes over the training here. Arad Ortiz Jr. booked to ride, and a nice drill. The only drill at Palm Meadows was a speedy 146 and 3 there from the gate. Now, you mentioned the 2, Yes, I Am Free, probably has to go. And I think you look at the last race, which so many exit, he had problems there. It wasn't an ideal start, and obviously he took a little bit of play, but this is a horse, go back to the races at Gulfstream and Churchill. He can be very quick from the gate as well.
He's actually a multiple graded stakes winner. He won this race in 2022 and in 2023. He's now a 9-year-old, though. He's 0 for his last 7. So you're wondering when you see horses get a little bit older like this and then they go a while without winning, have they lost a step or two? Is he quite the same horse that he was maybe 2, 3 years ago? But very, very fast, really honest, and a horse who I love seeing in these turf sprints at Gulfstream Park. He always shows up here. So I'll root for him, but I think he's going to have to deal with a lot of other speed to his outside in here.
As we move to the 3, Mucho del Oro will show a replay of one of those most recent performances. Now, going back to that race at Santa Anita, a really nice performance here in the Daytona, led throughout and ends up holding here in the final stages. And you can see a couple other horses that we'll see exit that race. Now, it's all the way back in May, Gino, but I think the interesting thing is this is a horse that as of late has been on the lead. He doesn't necessarily need the lead as you kind of go through his past performances.
That's the key. He'll be part of the early pace, but he has shown us that he can sit off a little bit and finish. And I think at 5 furlongs, cutting back from the 6.5 furlong distance, that'll be key because he's actually never been 5 furlongs in his entire career. He has gone 6 furlongs a couple times. Once he won at 6 furlongs way earlier in his career. Then most recently he was outrun a little bit, but I think he will sit the trip. My only real concern with him is a stat that I pulled up when I was looking at some of the Santa Anita races over the weekend. Over the last year, Doug O'Neill was just 3 for 44 with runners off a plus 180 day layoff. So a very good barn, but not a barn that's been great over the last year, getting horses off the bench like this, ready to fire. I still think Mucho Del Oro is a major player in here.
The 4X them hill for Safi Joseph Jr. Disappointed last time out. And prior to that was kind of on the shelf for a little bit. This one's been well traveled though. And I don't know how you assess him. I haven't loved his last two performances. And then there's some worries with the races 3 and 4 back. Sure, they're great, but they're at Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, he's just not been in the best of form. Multiple graded stakes place, but the last couple, they're not good, as you pointed out. Watching them back, not really excuses for them either. So I'm gonna need to see a form reversal before I'm willing to throw him into the exotics for me.
The 5, that's right. This one for Brad Cox, previously trained by Brittany Russell. And that most recent effort was fourth, beaten by 3, gets blinkers on in this spot. I think when you maybe assess the last out, I don't know how you felt about it, just felt like an even, decent performance for me.
Yeah, almost like a run around the track for a new barn. They had moved into the Brad Cox barn, kind of see what you have, and now they put the blinkers on, hoping to get more forwardly placed. It really wasn't a bad effort, honestly. And I wouldn't be against using that's right in some under spots. It's just I'm trying to envision the shape of the race. And if he gets the setup, he's just always been really one-dimensional. So I have a tough time not seeing him show some early speed and then probably fading a little bit late in here.
The number 6, None Hudson, was 0 for 4 last year. Did have 2 wins, though, back in 2023. And kind of looking at his performances in 2024, he had a long time off. And his best race might have been the one that we last saw him in when he was second behind Determined Kingdom at Keeneland. How do you assess him now off of those performances going from 5.5 to 5 furlongs?
I want to like him more than I do. I feel like I look at the way the race shapes up. I think he should get a pretty good trip. I just don't know how good overall he really is. That runner-up effort last time out wasn't bad though. He moved to the outside. The eventual winner moved to the inside. That might have been the difference there in that race. It really wasn't too bad. So I could see him getting a nice trip and maybe being an underneath horse, but I just don't know if he's good enough to beat this entire field.
All right, we'll move on to the 7 here. The stablemate of the 2, Yes, I Am Free, another one for Laura Casares. And this is Panther Island, who was third last time out. That was a race at the fairgrounds, though. And in terms of the Gulfstream Park record, it's good, but you have to go pretty far back to it. And it's, as of late, typically isn't in the winner's circle.
Yeah, actually won this was the runner-up in the Janice won the Janice last year, was the runner-up in the Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint last year behind Coppola. So has been a mainstay at these types of races, but you're absolutely right. The better part of his form was early to the middle of last year. And this year he just hasn't been running as fast. So same thing as I pointed out a few different times. Do you want to take a horse in this race that's not coming into it in their best of form when you know you have a lot of competitive horses in here? I don't really want to. I'm looking for horses that are coming in a little bit sharper.
The 8, Portofino, this one trained by Joe Orsino, was a winner last time out, gate to wire, a career best buyer, but a different surface. It was at Gulfstream Park, but it was on the Tapeta. And prior to that, you can see, I feel like in the last couple of years, Joe Orsino has been traveling a little bit more, and this has been one of the horses that he's taken on the road.
Yeah, just the second time against Stakes Company. He won gate to wire on a synthetic. I think we respect the horse's ability overall. I'm just a little bit worried about what trip does he get in here, right? He's fast, but there is speed all over the place. Can he really take back and sit off horses and pass? Is he going to be able to hold off some of the deeper closers who have a big turn of foot? I respect him overall. I just think it's a pretty tough spot for him here.
And the 9, Nobles, needs no introduction, a grade 1 winner in his career. Go back to 2023. He won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. But last time we saw him, it's a little bit of a venue change. We hadn't seen him at Woodbine in quite some time. They put him in the grade 2 Kennedy Road. And on paper, I mean, his main rival was Patches O'Houlihan, and we know what he can do sprinting. And he's going to end up, getting the job done over him here by 3/4 of a length. And I thought E.T. Baird gave him a perfect ride. And, he raced like he should have.
Yeah, and Patches O'Houlihan is a really nice horse. He's a multiple graded stakes winner. I think he's an 11-time winner, like 11 for 14 up there. So if you don't know that name because he races up at Woodbine a lot, he is really, really honest. No Balls was your 2023 Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner. And then really had a disappointing 2024, Ashley. Like, is coming off of a Breeders' Cup win. You're expecting this horse to be right up at the top tier, one of the best horses in the division. And that really wasn't the case for the first few starts of the year. Then on November the 16th, when he went to the synthetic, that was a much better effort. And so that's why I'm going to give him a little bit of a shot in here, because we showed that he can sit close. He can also pass horses like he showed us. I feel like he's one of the more proven horses, and the key for me, one of the more versatile horses in this race. Like, I could see him winning this race in different ways.
Yeah, you make a great point there about his running style. He doesn't need the lead. He can be close to it or be a little further back. The 10, Smithwick Spice. This one for Doug Nunn. This is a New Jersey bred who scored a little bit of an upset 2 back in that overnight handicap at Gulfstream Park. It was 5.5 on the Tapeta. And then last time out, sort of chase the pace throughout in there. And kind of when we look at that race later, we won't show it yet. I mean, Coppola sort of got onto the front end pretty easy. And I feel like sometimes when you're chasing, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, he was not in the best spot. You're right. Chase mode is very, very tough when you're second or third and you're chasing that lone speed horse and you don't really get
Mhm.
the opportunity to relax at all. I'm just a little worried about him also as a 9-year-old now, a little bit older. I mean, he was 55 to 1 in that race with a lot of these common rivals. So he just does seem like a big long shot in here.
As we move to the 11 Reef Runner, we'll show that race that we've talked about. 6 horses in this field on Saturday exit the Janus. And Reef Runner, I think, even though he won the Bob Humphreys Turf Sprint, which was taken off and moved to the Tapeta, he still had something to prove a little bit. And I think overall, he runs very well here. You'll see him close from towards the back of the pack. And as we mentioned, Coppola gets an easy lead in here and ends up being much the best.
Yeah, if you watch the head on of this race, he actually breaks outward and hits the starting gate when he's coming out. So you imagine if you're starting a race and you right off the bat you hit the starting gate, it's going to take you a little while to get going. And Reef Runner was probably farther back than he had ever been or ever was probably expecting to be in that particular race. So yeah, I like him. I think he's on the upswing. He's kind of lightly raced compared to a lot of these horses too, so probably has a little more upside. I don't really have very many knocks on Reef Runner in here.
And we saw that performance from what will be here, the 12 Coppola on the Friday. And I'm just curious, obviously, a very talented horse. I think he's been well managed by Dale Romans. I just don't see a situation here, Gino, and maybe you do. I don't know. I just don't see him getting an easy lead like he did
No.
last time. I think there's a lot more speed in here. There's some fresh faces, and I wonder how that affects him in this spot.
Absolutely. He's going to have a tough time from out there, and he's going to have to work really, really hard. He caught that flyer from the extreme outside last time, but there are at least 2 or 3 horses in here. You could tell that just by the intentions coming into the race with equipment changes or certain things where they're going to be more forward in this race. So, yeah, I had a tough time. I couldn't get to him on the win end. I could absolutely see him from the outside used very hard and hanging around for a slice. Maybe can he sit off a little bit? He's done that before, but sitting off from the way outside in a turf sprint, you can get parked sometimes. So while I respect his ability at the level, I think he's a fantastic fit with this class of horses. It's going to be a little tricky for him trying to work out the trip that he needs.
So Coppola rounds out the main body of the field. We still have 3 other horses, though. The 13, Capture the Lion, the 14, Foxtrot Anna, and the 15, Abir Caminos. Out of those 3, was there anyone there that you would have given a look to, or do you feel like it's a big step up for any of them?
Yeah, probably stepping up for most of them, but Abir Caminos I thought was a little bit interesting. Tried the synthetic the last couple times, but this horse does have some solid turf form in Chile before coming over. You can always take another look at Safety Joseph Jr. when he's claiming runners, especially at Gulfstream Park. So maybe you want to take a second look at Capture the Lion. I would probably prefer Abir Caminos if you were going to use one of the AEs in here.
All right, that's race number 5 this Saturday at Gulfstream Park. It's the Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint. As we move to top pick time, you sort of sold yourself. I had a
Yeah.
feeling you were going to go with the 9 Nobles in here based on the fact that he has that versatility and obviously he has the back class as well.
I play the races, Ashley. I don't play poker because I would give it away quite often. No poker face for me. Yeah. I like the versatility here. He's obviously proven at the class level, no doubt about it. I'll use the 12 to the outside. I think we'll be hard pressed, but then can hang around for a slice. You've got Mucho Del Oro on top. I think he could sit a really nice trip in here as well. And then I'll round out the field with no Nate Hudson, kind of the interesting, maybe price horse I think could get a nice trip in here, who you also have in the 4th spot.
Yeah, pretty similar thoughts here. I was torn between Nobles and Mucho del Oro. I just was curious to see Doug O'Neill send this one to Gulfstream. I think coming out of those races on the downhill at 6.5, this is a type that we mentioned has versatility as well and can maybe get the right trip at 5 ace. And I guess the one horse that was a little shocked that I liked him in the spot was the number 1, Johnny Padres. I think if there is a ton of speed, maybe he's flying late. Maybe sort of the change of scenery wakes him up. But I do think in a spot like this, he will offer more value than we've seen in the past. So 9, 12, 3, 6 for Gino, 3, 9, 1, 6 for me. It's race 5 this Saturday at Gulfstream, the Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint. Good luck.